Isn't it wonderful to come to a podium with such an engaging and supportive cast before you? Noel and Kerry, thank you so much. Dr. Nannup, Vice-Chancellor, for what I regard as a very supportive welcome. I'd, of course, like to start by acknowledging and paying my respects to the traditional owners, past and present, of the land on which we're meeting today. I think the long and continuing relationship between the traditional owners and this very special place of Western Australia that we all call home should be an absolute inspiration to all of us. Care and conservation of places and the way people use them, I think, is a very good analogue for the care and conservation of the societies of people that are based on core, at personal relationship. So on the occasion of International Women's Day 2014, and very much in memory of Edith Cowan, I will reflect on one of the segments of society that I represent, women, and call us all to action to improve the position of women in our society. Edith was a woman of great action, and I think the best way that we can honour her is to follow suit. It's humbling to be asked to deliver a memorial lecture such as this. 5 wonderful women preceded me and made meaningful reflections in the process of delivering their lectures. Dr. Penny Flett, who is a colleague of mine in CEW, that's Chief Executive Women, delivered the inaugural lecture in 2009 and spoke in honour of hope and courage. Penny chairs the Council of Methodist Ladies College, which I have recently joined. I was absolutely delighted to see Penny become an officer in the Order of Australia in this year's Australia Day Honours List. She is certainly a woman of action. Now, like Penny, and also Edith Cowan well before her, I'm a strong advocate of educational opportunity for all. Women in Western Australia are still to a degree challenged in making the most of the educational opportunities that they have in front of them. So I have chosen to serve with Penny on Methodist Ladies College. I received very strong role modelling on this front as a child. I have in common with Edith that my mother was a teacher. And as you have heard, my mother Betty is here today, and I'd like to acknowledge her and her wonderful support over my life again. Thank you, Mum. Having left full-time schooling with a junior certificate, that's year 10 for some of the younger people here, my mother studied part-time at the kitchen table over many years to obtain tertiary teaching and accounting qualifications. She taught accounting at Santa Maria College and was deputy principal for many years over a 22-year career at Santa. Now, I'm a proud West Australian born and bred. Having spent more than 20 years living outside of Perth, I've been fortunate to observe and experience how women fare in other places. It's always been a source of pride for me that it's possible to claim that our state has been a leader in providing women equal opportunity. In August 2006, MLA member for Girraween, Margaret Kirk, who was Minister for Women's Interests at the time and was speaking on the occasion of the 85th anniversary of Edith Cowan's maiden speech, said Mrs Cowan's election to Parliament in 1921 made Western Australia the pioneering state for women's rights in Australia. Because as we have heard, Edith Dirksy Cowan, née Brown, was born on Glengarry Station near Geraldton in August 1861 and was the first woman elected to an Australian Parliament, taking her seat in the Legislative Assembly. Western Australia was also very early in granting women suffrage. Women received the right to vote in 1894, just marginally behind the world-leading New Zealand. Putting this in context, it was not until the late 1940s that women in Italy received the vote. Women in Malaysia were granted the vote in the year I was born, 1957, and women in Saudi Arabia are still waiting. Edith's achievement is even more startling in that it was another 20 plus years until a woman was elected to the Australian Senate, and that of course was Dorothy Tangney, another West Australian. She was the only female senator for 25 years. Western Australia also delivered Australia's first female cabinet member around that time, Florence Cardell Oliver, who was the State Minister for Health, Supply and Shipping. And the first just kept on coming for WA. Ruby Hutchinson, the first woman in an Australian Legislative Council, served for 17 years from 1954, and for that time the only woman in the council. Now today 30% of West Australian parliamentarians are women. That would put us in the top 30 in the world if we were a separate nation, which of course some people think we should be. We're certainly better than the federal lower house, not quite as good as the upper house. We've got a long way to go to be world leading. 40% would get us there. Sadly, we're not quite the leaders we used to be. And I have to say that, welcome, corporate WA is not a leader in diversity either. Rather, it's considered a bit of a boys' club, with many of the smaller listed companies in the state without any female presence on their boards. Government in WA is stepping up in this arena. Just last week, Minister Lisa Harvey, who's the Minister for Police, Tourism and Women's Interest, launched a new resource that's going to help in this arena, Being Board Ready, a guide for women. Minister Harvey understands the challenges women face. She's been a businesswoman and she's now in government. She has a women's advisory group in place and she's very keen to take further action. Unfortunately, men get most of the money too. WA Business News analyses the remuneration of executives in public companies in our state. Of the 100 highest paid executives in 2013, only 2 were women. Just to be clear, these are appointed executives, not founders or owners. The first woman in the top 100 comes in at number 35. Interestingly, of the $1.5 million she received, less than $250,000 was fixed non-risk compensation. The shareholders in that company, by the way, got a 3,550% return on their money, so long-term incentive was the way this woman earned her money. And those long-term incentives will have further conditions attached to them. So only if the shareholders keep getting their return will that woman get that money, unlike some of the other people in the top 100 list. As a trailblazing member of government, let's consider what might Edith Cowan have suggested we do to return WA to the position of pioneer for women's rights and to deliver equal opportunity for all women, which I believe was her true goal, and of course something else that I share with Edith. A woman clearly of vision and great aspiration, I think Edith Cowan would be disappointed and rightly say we have not made enough progress. Not fast enough, not far enough, just not enough. Let me try and speak for Edith. Firstly, I think she'd see a role for action from government, because that's largely where she played. So I think it's very appropriate that today I'm going to use the opportunity of this memorial lecture to call on Premier Barnett and his Minister for Women's Interests, Lisa Harvey, to provide much greater transparency around state government board appointments. We should challenge our state government to mirror federal actions on board gender diversity, with the aim of ensuring women have equal opportunity to serve on and lead important WA government boards. Now, I spent a number of years as Deputy Chairman of NBN Co. That was a character-forming experience, if ever there was one. The board of NBN Co in July 2013 had a female chairman, a female deputy chairman, and 50% female representation across all directors. Government do quite well in this arena. At June 2012, women held 38.4% of federal government board appointments. This was an increase from 35% in 2011. 41% of the 1,633 new federal government board appointments were awarded to women. Now, I would like to note we do a little better in WA because we have 41% representation on state government boards, but only 29% of them are actually chaired by women. Much better than corporate Australia, of course, where the percentage of women on ASX 200 boards in 2013 was just 17.1%. While it's been steadily rising, it was static for so many years at just about 8%. So the federal government's desire to have greater gender diversity on their boards was absolutely crystal clear, and I believe it remains so. So they enshrined it into the government business enterprise guidelines, which says that the government has a target of 40% of board members being women, 40% men, and the remaining 20% to be held by either men or women by 2015. So each year, NBN Co board would get a letter from the shareholder ministers pointing out 40, 40, 20 and giving you a scorecard. There are 454 government boards and it's completely transparent. You can go on their website And then annually they publish the achievement by ministerial portfolio. So what they do is they show within each minister's portfolio how many women there are on the boards, whether they're in the leadership roles, and of the new appointments, have they been given to men or given to women. If you don't meet the 40-40-20 target, you have to develop an action plan to get there. The plans have to be approved. They then get monitored. And so you can see also on the website where the available opportunities are. So if people are interested, they can register for the opportunities. Now, this is very good practice in getting to an outcome. You set a target, you communicate it really widely and very pointedly, and you make opportunities transparent, measure achievement, and require, if not, why not reporting. You monitor the recalcitrants. We should have a system like this in Western Australia. Unfortunately, we don't. There's no publicly available data, although the Public Service Commissioner does say you should take account for diversity. The numbers that I quoted before came from the Office of the Minister for Women's Interests. They're very good. We should applaud them. But transparency would show us if the positions are concentrated across a few women or broadly spread, if women are being restricted to narrow agendas or playing in places where it actually really matters. And also, if there are ministers whose portfolios are actually lagging. So that's government. But secondly, I'm sure that Edith would have asked us to address economic levers. Edith complained that as a woman, she had an inferior education. I suspect there was a focus on literature and reading, but not a great deal of mathematics or economics. It's clear, however, that Edith had a finely honed commercial sense. You can see this in the issues that she chose to focus on, both in Parliament and before becoming a parliamentarian. Her private member bills focused on equalising the position of mothers with that of fathers when children died intestate, and on legalising the entry of women into the legal profession. So a continued focus on equal opportunity, but a very strong commercial spin there. She understood the importance of childcare in allowing women to participate in the workforce and worked to establish day nurseries to support the working mothers of the day. I think she might have been in support of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry's suggestion that HECS-type loans should be available for childcare to allow women to leverage future income to fund investments in their careers today through childcare. I think Edith would rightly say we have not pushed on anywhere near far enough on her pet topic of economic equality for women. Let me quote CEW President Christine Christian. Australia considers itself a land of equal opportunity, but our record on economic equality for women is deeply disappointing. CEW is hugely concerned that today a huge gap exists between the income levels of males and females on retirement. Women hold only 37% of total superannuation balances, leaving, of course, 63% controlled by men. This inequity stems from the inequitable levels of pay for women and the need for many women to take a break from the workforce during child-rearing years. Superannuation was supposed to provide financial independence for all Australians, including women, in their retirement. However, as we are now seeing, women do not yet have this guarantee of financial independence. Disappointingly, no government has come up with the right policies to narrow the gender gap in superannuation, and this is going to just put more strain on Australia's budget as the population ages and more women draw on our pension system. Edith would have been a tireless campaigner on this topic. Which of our current elected representatives will take the actions that would make Edith proud? And I really hope it's going to be a woman. Women's lack of financial independence in retirement compared to men is just a symptom of gender inequality. Edith Cowan herself left an estate of £161. In today's dollars, that would be $14,322.16. Let's all hope that this is indicative that Edith spent it all before she passed away, rather than that she was in straitened circumstances. So let me now turn to what Edith Cowan might say to each of us. Now, I don't know what Edith might have made of the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, but they're a favourite band of mine. Maybe the only person in the room who they're a favourite band of. They've got a song that's called Knock on Wood. That's where I took the title of this address. So with apologies for a few omissions, and be thankful I am not going to sing, the words go like this. Have you ever had the odds stacked up so high you need a strength most don't possess? Or has it ever come down to do or die? You've got to rise above the rest. Well, I've never had to, knock on wood, but I know someone who has, which makes me wonder if I could. And I'm glad I haven't yet, because I'm sure it isn't good. That's the impression that I get. I'm not a coward. I've just never been tested. I'd like to think that if I was, I would pass. So what's my point here? My point is that we're all actually being tested on the subject of gender opportunity, equal opportunity for women. We're tested every single day. We might not recognise the injustice of the situation as easily as one can recognise the injustice of things like racial hatred or apartheid or lack of equal access to health and education. But the outcome is just as negative for our economic and social well-being. We need to change the status quo, and we need to change it fast. It's very appealing as a high-achieving woman to say that you're not discriminated against, and you therefore don't need to be an activist for equal opportunity. I thought this for quite some time. My career was going along very nicely, thank you. What was all the angst about? I was heartened to see Christine Lagarde, Managing Director of the IMF, admit to similar sentiments, noting that as a young woman she was opposed to quotas, but that the experience of working in a large international law firm changed her mind. Like Christine Lagarde, with the benefit of hindsight and the wisdom of a few grey hairs, I'm able to recognise the points in my career where I did not get a fair go. No regrets, no what ifs, just motivation to change things. We are a small, very high cost economy. We need to improve productivity, and using all of our talent has to be the lowest hanging fruit available. So now I can see some of you thinking, okay, good, you're calling us to action. What are you, Diane Smith-Gander, going to do to take action? So I'm focusing my actions in the board and governance space. We know that diversity will directly benefit the process of decision making. And it also seems to me that to allow women less opportunity than men is not merely a business problem, it's a values problem at core. So if our board structures cannot be appropriately diverse, what realistic chance do we have for our organisations to have good values and be appropriately diverse? So I'm involved in the AICD Mentor Program. I coach and mentor aspiring directors. I speak out on the topic a lot. And now that I'm at Transfield, I've set a diversity policy with a target of 30% or more of our managers being female, and that's a good start for an engineering company. I have added another woman on our board, an experienced female operations engineer, the beast that's actually not supposed to exist, and I'm establishing a Chairman's Council of Senior Women who are going to develop initiatives to help improve our gender diversity, a lot of which will be around our graduate recruitment program. And then finding and giving women the operational and line experiences they need to be able to manage big contracts, get them in charge of the profit and loss account rather than the staff and support functions. And we're working very hard to think about how we can get our suppliers to understand that they must deliver gender diversity. That was something I did a lot when I was at Westpac in control of a $1.5 billion budget. If you make a bit of a joke as the boys leave the room and say, oh, where are the skirts? Bring me some next time. It's quite startling that the very next time they do turn up. So let me challenge all of you as we honour Edith Cowan, Woman of Action. What action can you take to support equal opportunity for Edith's sex becoming an absolute reality? Thank you very much. I am happy to take questions.